Good to go.
Great. Welcome everyone to Senate Education. Today is the 14th of April, and we are going to start our conversation today with the Vermont State Colleges on the budget. I believe we have the Chancellor and Director of External Government Affairs and Chief Financial Officer with us. Good afternoon, ladies. How are you?
We're fine. Thank you very much for inviting us in.
Thank you for joining us. Let me just put one message here. Okay. So, of course, you've been in the news today a little bit already. I know I'm sure it's been a challenging few days, if not longer, for all of you. And of course, we're wondering if you might want to say something about where things stand right now prior to jumping into the budget. That would be helpful for all of us. We do know that you're coming back in on Tuesday, of course, to fill us in more around the future of the state colleges, but there is an elephant in the room. So if you would just say a few words, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. Yes, so we have had a busy week. This morning, as I'm sure you're aware, the Vermont State Colleges Board of Trustees accepted the resignation of President Pawinder Graywall and appointed Mike Smith to serve as the interim president for Vermont State University for the next 6 months. So we're sorry to lose President Graywall, very excited to have Mike Smith come on board. And so he'll be joining us next week. We're obviously at a very critical point in our transformation here. As you know, we're going through what's really a 5-year transformation, and we're getting close to the midpoint. We have the launch of Vermont State University coming up on July 1st. So that's really where our laser focus is right now, is to make sure that's successful. Again, happy to have Mike come on board. I think he's excited to join this, and we'll be working closely with students, faculty, and staff to really move forward in a constructive, collaborative way. So it's been a busy week, but I think this is going to be a very positive step as we move forward.
Any other comments or questions or comments from the committee at this point, knowing that this team of people will be back next week to talk further? Senator Weeks.
What's the nature of Tuesday's conversation? Just to kind of
so Tuesday conversation was in response to a question you had in committee around, and others, around, okay, as these things start to happen, whether it's the library announcement or what may be coming, what does that end goal look like? What does the university, what do our Vermont State College system going to look like? Is it going to be a place without walls? Is it going to be mostly online? And just trying to get our head around that, so that if other decisions do come forward, well, it just be helpful to us to say, hey, well, that makes sense because they said this is what things may look like. Does that help?
It does. So all my questions that I would ask today actually are about the 5-year plan, the strategic plan. So probably best, I'm going to hold my questions.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I got a question. So I've asked for some data in the past, and I just want to know what's really changed. I mean, as far as the libraries and how we got into this. Is there anything that's going to change?
Yes. Yeah. So the board has put a pause on the libraries and the athletics decision. So with Mike Smith coming on board, we're going to give him some time, again, to get to know our students, staff, and faculty, and then develop a comprehensive set of recommendations for the board on libraries and athletics. I do want to emphasize that conversations have been going on around libraries and athletics. So again, we will be looping President Mike Smith into those, but we're anticipating that there'll be updates coming to the full Board of Trustees on both of those very shortly.
Is there any talk of putting faculty or staff on and getting them involved in some of the discussion as you go forward?
Yeah, they already are. So we have a libraries transformation team that's made up of professional librarians, has faculty on it, staff as well as the system director of libraries. And so that team has been meeting for some time, but they have re-engaged over the library's proposal. And again, they're continuing to have conversations. They also are sharing information with the faculty assemblies. So there is communication going on there and collaboration as we move forward on what the libraries can look like as we head into the new university.
So when will we know the results of your discussions?
Well, Mike comes on board next week, so I want to give him some time to get his feet under him and have a chance to meet with people, but it will be soon. We're scheduled on athletics to talk to the board about that on April 25th. We have a board meeting coming up. I can't give you a date on the libraries. I want to make sure that again, President Smith has a chance to, get connected to what's going on and be in a position to make some recommendations to the board.
Thank you. Yes, Senator Weeks.
Actually, I'm going to make a comment if I could, Ms. Chancellor, about the library transformation team. So that team predates the decision about the library going 100% digital. And one of the criticisms over the past couple months was that the recommendations that they made in regards to the library transformation weren't listened to, and I'm wondering how the future is going to be different in incorporating the opinions or the feedback or the thoughts of the library transformation team for the future, given the kind of given the fact that they were kind of ignored back in January.
Right. So the libraries team has been working on the refined libraries plan that President Graywall had shared. And again, I think they're trying to flesh out what could this look like moving forward. So they have been involved. They would be part of their feedback will certainly be incorporated into the recommendations as we move forward.
Thank you, ma'am.
We have about 30 minutes to go through the budget proposals. So I don't know who's going to take the lead on that, but just hoping you can leave about 10 minutes for questions. So not a lot of time, but Appropriations asked us to have a review of this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kick it off and then turn it over to Sharon Scott, as she's our Chief Financial and Operating Officer. But I just want to say that we are excited by the fact that the governor included us in his budget and really provided us with most of what we had requested. And we're also very happy that we got the recommendations we did coming out of the House. But I would certainly let Sharon take over here in terms of getting into the details of it.
Thank you so much, Sophie. So our transformation goals are pivotal to what our budget request actually looks like. So our key goals for the Vermont State Colleges that come from our Board of Trustees is to increase affordability, the accessibility of higher education for Vermonters, the quality of our programs, and also the relevance of our programs, particularly relevance in relationship to workforce. We also have a charge that came from the legislature regarding the reduction of our structural deficit. This was the recommendation of the Select Committee on the Future of Higher Education and was adopted into statute a couple of years ago. And that requirement is to reduce our structural deficit by $5 million a year for a total of $25 million over a period of 5 years. We also need to right-size our campus communities to meet the needs of our learners today. And that means that really, as we look at our overall footprint of our existing facilities, we recognize that we probably have too much space, and we need to look at how that will be structured moving forward, because that is one of our key goals relative to our structural transformation, the financial portion of that transformation. Catherine, would you go to the next slide? So today our budget ask is really related to our base appropriation, bridge funding, and then several special projects. So Catherine, if you'd go to the slide with the chart on it. So what we're looking for and making as a request is an increase to the general fund base appropriation of $2.5 million. That would improve and increase the general fund to $48 million. So today it's at 45.5. We would do a request an increase of 2.5 million, and that was included in the House's budget. In addition to that, we have one-time sources of funding that we are also seeking. And the first is $9 million in terms of bridge funding. That bridge funding has been essential to the Vermont State Colleges since 2020 and has really allowed us to be able to conduct the transformation in a meaningful, thoughtful, and planned way. This would be the continuation of that funding. The second is the reduction of CCV tuition. The governor's proposal was $10 million, and we are very supportive of his proposal. Although we will note that the House's budget includes $4 million, and we would be really happy to see the restoration of the full $10 million. And the remaining 3 projects are critical occupation scholarships funded in an amount of $3.8 million and a certificate in 3D technology for $1.5 million. And then a restorative justice program that would be launching a restorative justice program for $700,000. So that is the totality of the budget that we're proposing. And I believe, Catherine, the next couple of slides talk about these one-time proposals. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more slide. I just want to put into context the general fund and the bridge funding relative to our asks that we've made over the last several years. So the FY24 column, where we are requesting the $2.5 million to bring us up to a base of $48 million, has been our plan as we move forward. Now, last year, you as a body actually accelerated the growth of the base appropriation by $5 million, which allowed us this year to receive those funds a little bit earlier than we had anticipated. So what you're seeing here is that for the next 3 years, we would be anticipating, according to our plan, that base would remain at approximately $48 million. The second part of that is the bridge funding proposal, and what we've requested is the $9 million, and that is what we shared with you last year. Now, I do want to point out that in the current year, FY23, we received $14.9 million in bridge funding. We would go down to 9 million this year and then pop back up to 10 million next year. And the reason for that is that because of the acceleration in the base last year, we had agreed that we would carry those funds forward and use those funds to assist us with covering a portion of the bridge this year. So essentially buying down a portion of this year's bridge. For the remaining 2 years of our transformation efforts, we would be seeking $10 million in FY25 and $5 million in FY26. Catherine?
So the next couple of slides cover those workforce development proposals. And I apologize for the record, Catherine Lavasser, Director of External and Governmental Affairs. It's nice to see you all again. The next couple of slides cover the workforce development proposals that are funded in the budget that we are requesting support for. And so I know you heard from our CCV students earlier this week, and I would just like to say, wow, because I found their testimony incredibly impactful, and their reasons for attending school, what higher education means to them and to their families. And so many of our students share similar stories, and each has their own story. And they are why we are here, and we are here to advocate for them. And so appreciate you all making the time to meet with them earlier this week. What we are requesting for CCV's tuition, as you heard from the students and from President Judy, CCV has the highest community college tuition in the country. And we are testifying today in support of the governor's proposal to pull that down. What it is currently funded at in the budget is $4 million. And we are seeking the restoration of the full $10 million so that we can run the 2-year pilot to lower CCV's tuition and workforce ready programs by 50%. The second,
Catherine, I don't mean to interrupt, but we've definitely heard this from Joyce, Judy. I just want to keep us on track. If this is new information, definitely let us know, but I think this is a repeat.
great, and I am moving on. The second proposal that we have is you will also find in the House budget and the workforce development bill that is underway in the economic development committees. We've testified over there in the Senate on this, but for your awareness, we are proposing to set up a certificate in 3D technology. And this would be in partnership with our Advanced Manufacturing Center at Randolph. So this is our state-of-the-art Department of Defense grant-funded additive and subtractive advanced manufacturing center. It serves employers, it serves our manufacturing program. So it's filling two aspects of workforce and economic development in the state. And what we are looking to do is build a pipeline of 9th through 12th grade students who may be interested in pursuing manufacturing as a career field. This equipment is really exciting. It is, you know, if you imagine a 3D printer the size of a helicopter pad, and X-ray and subtractive technology that can do things like do a readout of flaws in an engine block that you would never see with the naked eye. This is the kind of equipment that we're talking about. And so for Vermont manufacturers, very exciting to have this Advanced Manufacturing Center in Randolph at the Vermont State Colleges. For Vermont students, very exciting to have the opportunity to receive training and to be brought into such a cutting edge and high tech field that's going to be growing in future years. What we're proposing is
Please, Senator Gula.
Sorry, Catherine, just a quick question. Is this going to be a summer course, a summer program?
yes, what we're proposing is a 6-week summer program that students leave with 9 credits. And a certificate in 3D technology. And so available through to 9th through 12th graders at no cost to them, providing residential scholarships as well as in-person scholarships, setting up the program and establishing it to run in partnership with the Randolph Center.
Okay, great. I'm sure you've thought of this, but I think a lot of the kids would be interested in that program. A lot of them have to work over the summer, but we can talk about that later.
Yes, and that is one of the reasons for requesting the financial assistance for the program to ensure it's no cost, no out-of-pocket cost to the students, recognizing that so many of our students and so many of the students that come to the Vermont State Colleges are working and supporting themselves and their families.
Thank you.
This one of the other programs that we are proposing is we would really like to set up a restorative justice bachelor's program. What we currently have is a concentration that is offered as a part of our criminal justice program. But what a standalone bachelor's program would do is it would be the first or one of the first offered in the country. We have the master's program at Vermont Law and Graduate School, and our hope would be that this would be a feeder program for that. What our current concentration offers is a couple of courses and some practical experience. It's based in Linden, and it's done in partnership with the Caledonia County District Attorney as well as the St. Johnsbury worksite and the correction system. And our goal is to set up a standalone Bachelor of Science program in restorative justice. What we are hearing from the field is that there is tremendous interest and tremendous demand for hiring individuals, whether it's school settings, community settings, law enforcement settings, restorative justice settings, for individuals trained in this practice, but there's often a hesitation to hire somebody with a criminal justice training. There's more of a focus on somebody that has advanced skills and certifications in restorative justice. And so we think that this could be a really exciting and innovative program for us to house. And what we're looking for is the startup funding to help us get that program off the ground. Because it is new, we have to do curriculum design, accreditation, et cetera. And so it takes a couple of years to move through that process. Our request for this year is the funding to get that program started.
Yes, Senator Shea.
Just a quick point of clarification, the restorative justice bachelor's, is that the first in Vermont? That would VSC be the first in Vermont to offer that?
We would be the first in Vermont and possibly one of the first or the first in the country. There are not many, if any, standalone programs. Often they are offered as we currently do, as a concentration within criminal justice. And so we would be one and alone on that.
And just a quick follow-up, is there any sort of potential partnering with the Vermont Law School? Because I know they offer, I believe, a certificate in restorative justice. So I'm just curious how that might look, or if it exists at all.
Yes, we actually have an incredible board member who's in the administration of Vermont Law and Graduate School and has facilitated some early conversations for us in establishing stronger partnerships and linkages between the potential for this program and the program that they have. And so that would be really exciting for us to have that progression and that pathway established. And that's a conversation that we're having as we look at developing this program.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm having a little trouble seeing the room. So Senator Campion, give me a signal if it's time to move on or take another question.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. The final ask came out of the House Commerce Committee. So some of you are familiar with the critical occupation scholarships that we've offered for the last 2 academic years in partnership with the legislature. These offer free last dollar tuition. So that is tuition after state and federal gift aid. So that's after your Pell Grant, your Vermont Grant, the gift aid that you get from, for example, VSAC. We also apply it after institutional aid. And so if you receive a specific scholarship from one of our institutions, we apply this after. So it's truly the out-of-pocket cost that students are paying out of pocket, or they would take out loans to cover that amount. What we've done for the last couple of years is offered this in a slew of critical programs. It's been programs like nursing, clinical mental health counseling, dental hygiene, and more. What House Commerce proposed for this year is to narrow the scope, and so to pull the dollar amount down quite a bit, but to continue offering this scholarship in programs that we're seeing really strong returns. And so, for example, we've seen a 68% increase in enrollment in our clinical mental health master's program since these scholarships were initiated. So these are individuals that are going directly into the Vermont workforce and filling critical needs for clinical mental health counselors in Vermont. We've filled almost every single one of our nursing sites. So we have 17 nursing sites around the state and in New Hampshire's border communities, the communities that have a hospital that serve Vermonters like Dartmouth, Keene, Littleton. Those sites are all full for the first time in 5 years. Since these scholarships were initiated, our early childhood education program has seen dramatic increases in participation. And what it says to us is that cost matters, and our students are incredibly price sensitive. We've also seen about a 50% decrease. I think you heard this from President Judy earlier this week as well, but between a 25 and a 50% increase on each of our campuses in private student loan borrowing. So these are the borrowing opportunities that are typically, it's not VSAC, those are public loans. It's private student loan borrowing. So if a student goes to a bank or another entity looking for a way to get those last couple of dollars that they need for their tuition because they can't afford it out of pocket, we've seen a significant drop in that borrowing since these scholarships were initiated. So what's proposed for this year is $3.8 million targeted on those programs where we're seeing that high enrollment and that growth: nursing, early childhood education, clinical mental health counseling, criminal justice, and dental hygiene. And so I believe that brings me to the conclusion of the ask part of the conversation. Would be happy to take questions that you might have.
Any questions on the financial ask? Yes.
So can we go back to the gazintas? We talked about cutting $5 million. Part of the answer was to do away with the library and some of the personnel. And I asked specifically the question about the administration's office, about do we actually have we tried to cut any of the administrative costs in salaries? Where are all the people in the administration physically in the state of Vermont, or are they in other areas like Nebraska? You know, I understand that we need to cut money. If you got to get to that $5 million per year, and you need to, in order to save the library and the personnel, we have to cut it back by $250,000. I get that. Where are we going to cut it? I haven't heard any of that.
Maybe, please, Chancellor, you're gonna jump in.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Sharon, do you want to address that in terms of as we look ahead? I can certainly comment otherwise.
Sure. So first of all, I want to acknowledge that this work is incredibly hard. We have faculty, staff, administrators who have had many sleepless nights for the last 2 or 3 years, honestly, since the beginning of COVID, wanting to make sure that we do what's right to be able to save not only the Vermont State Colleges, but really to do what's right for the state of Vermont and for the people of Vermont, because we're here to serve Vermont and Vermonters and make sure that we're educating the next generation of students and really building that pipeline that can make sure that we have a really solid workforce. That's really why we're here. And all of us are so focused on that mission that it's been many sleepless nights for very, very many of us. And so we have a lot of work ahead of us as we do that, as we do those consolidations. In this next year, specifically the work that we are doing right now to capture the savings for the Vermont State Colleges, it begins first with some structural work that we're doing from a financial perspective. One example of that is that we will be making a proposal to our Board of Trustees at their Finance and Facilities Committee meeting on this coming Monday to do some debt restructuring. Due to the incredible partnership that we've had with you and the legislature and the bridge funding that we've received, we will be able to make a proposal to actually pay off one of our bond series, our Series 2013, which will allow us to be able to eliminate approximately $1.3 million annually for the next 10 years from our budget. That's an important step as we move forward, as we look at what are the structural issues relative to the Vermont State Colleges. Part of it is having too much expense. It also allows us to forego interest expense over those 10 years of $2.4 million, which allows us to really be able to focus the funds that we have on our students and really be able to make sure that we're able to provide really solid education as we move forward. Another thing that we're looking at and we're able to do because of the excellent hard work of our faculty over these last 2 years is their work on program optimization has allowed us to be able to streamline our academic programs. That work relative to program streamlining has allowed us to be able to consolidate academic sections. Now, that's a long way of saying we're able to have some more students in our classes and reduce the number of classes that we're teaching. That allows us to rely less on part-time employees to teach sections to be able to make things happen. So instead of perhaps having a section of 5 or 6 students, we may have a section of 10 to 15. That goes a long way towards helping us be able to move forward. And that really comes through that excellent hard work of our faculty and their real focus on being able to provide a meaningful set of changes. It didn't come without a tremendous amount of hard work. They worked tirelessly over this past year to make that happen, and we're able to begin realizing that work. Lastly, we're really looking at our ability to be able to consolidate positions as we move forward. So a big part of the work as we move forward is the consolidation of administrative and other positions as we move forward to really realize the savings relative to the actual transformation. And that allows us to be able to pull down those costs. So those are the things, the big ticket items that we're looking for relative to that particular set of work. I can't speak specifically to the administrative savings relative to Vermont State University. I do know that we have worked to consolidate administrative positions, particularly executive level positions. For example, 2 years ago, we had 3 presidents and 3 deans of administration who are their chief financial officers at the institutions, 3 sets of deans of students, et cetera. Those are no longer replicated as of July 1 this year. So that is all part of the work that we're looking for as we capture those savings. Before us over these next several years, because this is only year 2 of our structural savings relative to this, we still have a tremendous amount of work ahead of us, work that will not be easy, and work that we will need to work together in partnership with our faculty and staff to make sure that we're able to hit all of the targets that we have. It's a lot of work before us.
I just want to follow up on that and just add, you had a question about out of state versus in-state. I think that 85% of our employees on all levels are Vermonters. Some of that is, folks that come to work from us from the border communities. For example, nursing faculty who may live and work at Dartmouth, but teach in our program in White River or in another area. We also have individuals that took advantage of remote and hybrid opportunities in the pandemic and brought their job with them where they went to. I was thinking of one person in particular who works in career services, who's now living in Texas, but prior to that spent her whole life and working career in Vermont. And so part of having the hybrid institution and some of the opportunities that it's opened up for us has been to both for folks to stay with us as they relocate, but also for us to pull in talent from elsewhere. But the majority of our staff, the majority of the administration lives in Vermont, works in Vermont.
Is the total ask 11.5 million
The total ask for
that you're asking for?
The ask for the total
The Appropriations Committee, I'm looking at the overview of an ask. Looks like 11.5 million, but I just want to make sure that's accurate, because then I see 700. What's the total ask in the budget?
Inclusive of
73.
right.
So inclusive of the base appropriation, the annual base appropriation, the requested increase, all of the workforce development proposals and the bridge funding, it's 73 million.
73 million. So the 11.5, is that on page 4, the overview of ask?
I see 2.5. Are you seeing 11.5 there?
Well, I see 9 plus 2.5.
So the 9 plus the 2.5, 9 is the bridge funding.
Okay.
And the 2.5 is the increase to the base appropriation. So you are correct, that does account for the 11.5 million there. The additional funds that Catherine is noting in the $73 million is the existing $45.5 million in base appropriation that we have today, plus the one-time requests in addition to base. So critical occupations, the restorative justice program, and the 3D program are all included in those, and the program to fund a tuition reduction pilot at CCV.
And that, okay, so CCV, we have already heard from and we've looked at separately. What I'm trying to do for the chair of appropriations here is we put in our letter what CCV asked us for yesterday. What are you asking for overall minus the CCV dollars?
So the total ask for the Vermont State Colleges
Yeah.
is 73 million.
Okay.
If you take out the 10 million for CCV,
Okay.
that's 63 million.
Right.
But as Vermont State Colleges is the
Sure, I understand.
shared entity, the total
That's
ask for us is
helpful. Yeah, so
73.
we'll just make that distinction in our note.
Yeah, it's 63.7, just to be clear. It's on slide 5. The budget crosswalk kind of lays it out pretty clearly.
That is the House version of the budget, Sophie. It does not include the additional $6 million that were in our original ask to the governor.
Can you say a word or two about how, when you talked about the restorative justice program, $700,000, start a new program. You said something, we're hearing, we've heard this, that. What kind of research do you have that this is a solid move? I know there are restorative justice programs throughout the state, certificate programs, one-time classes, all sorts of things. Now a bachelor's program, if somebody says to us down the hall, hey, where's some of this research coming from? What can I hand them?
I would be happy to give you the memo that I gave to House Commerce when we established the ask. It outlines a couple of different data points that we have around the program and the need for it, as well as information from our criminal justice graduates who have tried to pursue work in restorative justice. And
Okay. Yes, that would be helpful if you would forward that along to us.
happy to.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a curiosity question. So we're in a weird position where we've just heard a budget summary, or at least a budget ask, and I understand we're getting into budget season. At the same time, we haven't really heard the strategic plan of where the university is going. We've offered a couple course opportunities and that kind of thing, but it doesn't really seem that we're getting the insight into how you're intending to re-engineer the college system to elevate the potential for solvency, recognize the $25 million reduction over a couple of years. And I'm just wondering if you can offer any kind of insights into how you're intending to re-engineer your programs, not just add new programs. Like what are you going to shave off? What's not working right now to allow the college system to become closer to solvency?
So we do have a plan there was the select committee that was created by the legislature back in 2020, and they produced a report that really outlined a vision for what Vermont State colleges could look like moving forward. Again, that one of their key recommendations was bringing together these three institutions to form Vermont State University. But that also laid out the ways in which we can get to a place of sustainability. So a lot of it, again, just alluding to what Sharon shared, a lot of it is around being more efficient in our administrative operations. And we've been moving forward with that. So we're creating a shared services structure so that we're able to, like HR, finance, IT, we can deliver services more efficiently with the people that we have, and particularly something like IT, where it's almost impossible for these individual campuses and institutions to replicate all that they need to do with regard to IT and cybersecurity and things like that. So really being thoughtful as we move forward on how to be as effective and efficient as we can. There are other big items that we know we have ahead of us. And one of those, again, that Sharon had mentioned is really focusing on our physical footprint. So we know we've already had studies that have been done that we've shared with our board that are publicly available regarding that we're overbuilt on our campuses. So we do know that part of what we need to do moving forward is really looking at our facilities. And right now there's work underway on creating a master's facilities plan, a strategic plan for facilities. The hybrid university concept, that's also set forth in the select committee report. That's something we've been working towards as part of the optimization that was referenced that faculty have been working on. Is also how do we deliver our programs in multiple modalities to make sure that students have access to our programs regardless of where they live. So that's something that's being built in. We have a pilot program that's been ongoing for the past year related to one-to-one digital devices and exploring that as a way to bring digital equity to our students. So, I mean, again, more than happy to I believe we're going to have this conversation on Tuesday, but more than happy to discuss discuss in greater detail. But a lot of this is not like a new plan or something different. What we're really working on is implementing the plan that was laid out by the select committee and was adopted by our board. And we've been working to implement that over the past 2 years. And obviously understanding this is a multi-year transformation. It doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot of pieces to this that will need further work as we move forward.
Good,
One of-
but I do also understand we're, as you mentioned, ma'am, we're halfway through the plan, halfway through the 5-year plan. And guess I'm just looking forward to Tuesday's strategic plan refreshment that's offered to all of us.
Happy to provide it.
Could I follow up on one thing, Senator Campion?
Yes, right after Senator Williams.
Absolutely.
And I hate to sound like a broken record, but, you know, the optics of this problem we've had at the Castleton, at the campus for closing the libraries, it seems that it's affected enrollment. You know, have you planned in any funding for public relations for advertising that's going to try and offset that? Because I think, you know, I'm really looking for some kind of what are we doing for a stopgap rather than closing the library? I haven't heard that.
And hopefully
Yes.
we get some of that on Tuesday, I would hope.
Yeah, I mean, the enrollment numbers are about where we expected them to be. There will be a discussion again with our Finance and Facilities Board on Monday around enrollment. And I do know our Vice President of Enrollment and our marketing folks are really working on a plan as well, to do some additional marketing and recruitment. So obviously we're doing everything we can to really bring in as many students and also to retain students. I mean, that's also a key piece as we move forward.
I appreciate the hard work and the sleepless nights. I understand that. Thank you.
I think we'll leave it there. Thank you all. And we will look forward to seeing you on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
May you just take the